Nothing makes you happy anymore. The things that used to bring you pleasure feel empty now. The achievements that once excited you leave you cold. The experiences you thought would satisfy you provide only brief distraction before the numbness returns. You buy things that promise fulfillment and they sit unused. You pursue goals that were supposed to change everything and reaching them changes nothing. You consume entertainment and information and experiences constantly and feel progressively less from all of it. You believe this is depression or anhedonia or some malfunction in your brain chemistry that prevents you from experiencing pleasure the way you used to, the way other people seem to. You think something is broken in you that needs to be fixed, that happiness is possible but something internal is blocking your access to it, and you search for solutions that will restore your capacity for pleasure, try new things and new approaches and new frameworks for finding happiness, always looking for the thing that will finally make you feel the way you believe you should feel. But nothing is broken in you. The problem is not that you have lost capacity for happiness, but that you have destroyed that capacity through the very methods you use to pursue happiness, through the constant overstimulation and endless seeking and relentless optimization that contemporary culture teaches you is the path to fulfillment. You are trapped in what psychologists call the pleasure paradox. The more directly you pursue pleasure and happiness, the more certainly you destroy your ability to experience them. Understanding why nothing makes you happy anymore requires examining not just what you are seeking, but how you are seeking it. Not just what you have lost, but what you have systematically demolished through your approach to living. Nothing makes you happy anymore because you have overstimulated your dopamine system to the point where normal pleasures cannot compete with the constant high-intensity stimulation you have trained your brain to require. We have raised your baseline threshold for pleasure so high that ordinary experiences register as boring or unsatisfying or actively unpleasant. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward, but it operates on relative scale, on contrast between expectation and experience, on novelty and intensity, rather than on absolute pleasure level. Your brain evolved to respond to natural pleasures, with moderate dopamine release that motivated seeking food and connection and reproduction and exploration. But you live in an environment designed to hack this system, designed to provide supernormal stimuli that trigger dopamine responses far beyond what natural pleasures provide, designed to keep you in constant state of seeking the next hit of stimulation that will make you feel something. You scroll social media for hours, each swipe providing tiny dopamine hit from novelty and possibility of interesting content, training your brain that pleasure comes from constant stimulation and rapid switching between sources. You watch pornography that provides sexual stimulation far more intense than actual human connection, training your brain that arousal requires extreme novelty and intensity that real relationships cannot match. You eat hyperpalatable foods engineered to trigger maximum pleasure response, training your brain that food should provide intense flavor experience that natural foods cannot deliver. You consume entertainment that is increasingly fast-paced and stimulating, cannot watch movie without also scrolling phone because single source of stimulation is not enough. You need multiple streams of novelty simultaneously to feel anything. You play video games designed to provide constant rewards and progression and achievements, training your brain that accomplishment should come rapidly and frequently with clear feedback and immediate gratification. This constant overstimulation raises your pleasure threshold, makes your brain require increasingly intense stimulation to feel anything, makes normal life experiences seem dull and unrewarding by comparison. Reading a book feels impossible because it is too slow. Conversation feels boring because it lacks the intensity of online interaction. Nature feels empty because it lacks the constant novelty of screen-based entertainment. Real sex feels disappointing because it lacks the intensity and variety of pornography. Real food tastes bland because it lacks the engineered intensity of processed food. You have not lost capacity for happiness. You have trained your brain to require levels of stimulation that sustainable life cannot provide, have destroyed your ability to experience pleasure from normal sources by constantly flooding your system with supernormal stimuli. Nothing makes you happy anymore because of hedonic adaptation, because your brain adapts to whatever pleasure level becomes normal and resets its baseline, so that you need more to feel the same satisfaction, because you are trapped on hedonic treadmill where you must constantly pursue new pleasures just to maintain the same level of happiness you had before. This is evolutionary feature designed to keep you motivated to improve circumstances and seek resources. But in modern environment of abundance, it becomes trap where enough is never enough and satisfaction is always temporary. You get the thing you wanted and it makes you happy for a brief period, and then the happiness fades as you adapt to having it, as it becomes normal rather than novel, as your brain resets its expectations to include this new possession or achievement or experience as baseline rather than as bonus. So you pursue the next thing, believing that this thing will provide lasting happiness, and the cycle repeats. And you end up with more and more but feeling no more satisfied, because adaptation means the finish line keeps moving. You get promotion you work toward, and it feels good for a week or month, and then it is just your job, just what you do. No longer source of satisfaction, but new baseline from which you measure whether you are doing well or poorly. You buy the thing you saved for, and it is exciting when it arrives, and disappointing within days or weeks as it becomes ordinary possession rather than desired object. You achieve the body you wanted through diet and exercise, and it feels good briefly, and then it is just how you look. No longer accomplishment, but new baseline that you must maintain or fall below. The adaptation means you cannot sustain happiness through acquisition or achievement, because the satisfaction is always temporary, the pleasure always fades, the baseline always resets. And contemporary culture teaches you to respond to this fading by pursuing more, by achieving more, by acquiring more, by constantly chasing the next thing that will finally provide lasting satisfaction. But the mechanism ensures that lasting satisfaction is impossible, that you will always adapt, that the treadmill will continue. You are not happy because you have been running faster and faster on treadmill that goes nowhere, have been pursuing pleasure through means that guarantee you can never catch it, have been seeking lasting satisfaction through temporary pleasures that by their nature must fade, leaving you always wanting more, but never actually more satisfied. Nothing makes you happy anymore because you use pleasure as escape rather than as genuine enjoyment. Use stimulation to avoid discomfort rather than to enhance life. Seek constant distraction from your actual experience rather than engagement with it. Pleasure becomes numbing agent, becomes way to not feel rather than way to feel good, becomes avoidance strategy rather than life-enhancing experience. And this instrumental use of pleasure destroys your capacity to actually enjoy anything because you are always using it for something other than itself. You are bored or anxious or uncomfortable, and you immediately reach for phone or food or entertainment or substance. Immediately seek stimulation that will make the discomfort go away. Immediately escape into pleasure rather than tolerate the feeling you are trying to avoid. This creates pattern where pleasure is always about escape, is always reactive rather than chosen, is always desperate attempt to feel different rather than genuine enjoyment of experience. The escape pleasure is different from genuine pleasure because it comes from place of desperation rather than desire, comes from what you are running from rather than what you are running toward, comes from need to not feel rather than desire to feel good. And this desperation poisons the pleasure, makes it feel hollow even while you are consuming it, makes it provide relief rather than joy, makes it leave you feeling worse afterward because you know you are avoiding rather than living. You binge watch shows not because you enjoy them, but because you cannot tolerate being alone with your thoughts. Eat junk food not because it tastes good, but because you are trying to soothe anxiety or fill emptiness. Scroll social media not because you are interested in the content, but because you cannot tolerate boredom or stillness. Use substances not because they enhance experience, but because they numb you to experience you find intolerable. This constant use of pleasure as escape means you never actually enjoy anything, because you are always using it instrumentally, are always consuming it to achieve different state rather than experiencing it for itself, are always trying to get away from where you are, rather than being present with what you are doing. The pleasure becomes compulsive, becomes need rather than want, becomes thing you must do to avoid discomfort, rather than thing you choose to do because it enhances your life. And this compulsive quality destroys any genuine satisfaction you might derive from it. Nothing makes you happy anymore because constant comparison destroys your ability to appreciate what you have, because you measure every experience against idealized versions you see online or imagine others are having, because satisfaction requires ability to be present with your actual life, rather than constantly measuring it against something else. Comparison is a cognitive process that prevents enjoyment of present moment by constantly evaluating whether this is good enough relative to what others have or what you believe you should have. You cannot enjoy your meal because you are comparing it to the perfect food photos you saw on social media. You cannot enjoy your vacation because you are comparing it to the highlight reels others post online. Cannot enjoy your relationship because you are comparing it to romanticized versions you see in media or imagine others are experiencing. Cannot enjoy your achievements because you are comparing them to the greater achievements of others who seem more successful or more accomplished or further ahead. The comparison happens automatically, operates as constant background process that evaluates everything you experience against external standard rather than on its own terms, that asks, is this as good as what others have, rather than am I enjoying this, that makes satisfaction depend on relative position rather than on absolute experience. And because there is always someone with more or better or different, because the comparison is against curated highlights rather than against reality, the comparison ensures that your experience will always fall short. You also compare your present to imagined future, cannot enjoy where you are because you are focused on where you believe you should be, cannot appreciate what you have because you are focused on what you believe you should have achieved by now, cannot be satisfied with current life because you are measuring it against the idealized version you believe you will have once you achieve certain goals or reach certain milestones. This future focus makes present moment feel like failure, like delay, like time you are wasting while waiting to arrive at real life that will begin once you finally achieve enough. The constant comparison means you never actually experience your life because you are always evaluating it, always judging it, always finding it wanting when measured against impossible standards created by comparison to others' highlights or to imagined futures or to idealized versions that exist nowhere except in your mind. You cannot be happy with reality when you are constantly measuring it against fantasy and finding it insufficient. Nothing makes you happy anymore because you live entirely in future, in planning and anticipating and working toward, never actually arriving at present moment where happiness could be experienced, always focused on what will make you happy once you achieve it, rather than on what is here now. Happiness is not future state you will reach through achievement, but is capacity to engage with present experience, and you have lost this capacity through constant future orientation that makes now feel like obstacle to overcome rather than life to live. You are always working towards something, always pursuing next goal, always believing that happiness will come once you achieve this thing, or reach this milestone, or acquire this possession. But when you arrive at the goal, you do not stop and enjoy it. You immediately identify new goal and continue striving. Continue working toward future that never becomes present. Continue living in what will be rather than what is. This creates life where you are perpetually dissatisfied with now, because now is always insufficient, is always preparation for future that will be better, is always stepping stone to somewhere else rather than destination in itself. You cannot enjoy your current job because you are focused on promotion you want, cannot enjoy current body because you are focused on fitness goals you have not reached, cannot enjoy current relationships because you are focused on ways they fall short of ideal, cannot enjoy current life because you are focused on different life you believe you will have once you finally achieve enough. The future focus is reinforced by culture that teaches success means constant growth and improvement, that tells you to never be satisfied with where you are but always be striving for more, that frames contentment as complacency and acceptance as giving up. So you learn that being happy with now means you lack ambition, that enjoying what you have means you are settling, that satisfaction is enemy of achievement, rather than recognizing that inability to ever be satisfied is not ambition, but a psychological trap that ensures you will never be happy regardless of what you achieve. You are not happy because you have been taught that happiness is in future, that present is just gap between past achievements and future goals, that life begins when you finally arrive at some destination you have been working toward. But the future never arrives, because when you reach it, it becomes present, which you immediately dismiss as insufficient, and the happiness you thought would come with achievement never comes because you have never developed capacity to experience it in present moment. Nothing makes you happy anymore because you have commodified happiness, have treated it as product to be purchased or achieved or optimized, rather than as natural byproduct of living well, have bought into cultural message that happiness can be engineered through right combination of purchases and achievements and experiences. This commodification turns happiness into goal to be pursued through consumption, rather than understanding it as quality of engagement with life that cannot be purchased or manufactured. You buy self-help books and courses and programs that promise to teach you how to be happy, pursue experiences that are supposed to make you happy, purchase things that advertising tells you will improve your life and increase your satisfaction, optimize your routines and habits and environment to maximize happiness, as if it were output that can be increased through correct inputs. But happiness is not product of optimization. It's not something that can be engineered or purchased or achieved through following correct formula. The commodification makes you approach happiness as consumer, as someone who is shopping for right thing that will finally provide satisfaction, as someone who believes happiness is out there waiting to be found and purchased, rather than understanding that it is quality of your relationship with your actual life. So you are always seeking new product or new experience or new approach that will finally deliver the happiness that previous purchases promised but failed to provide. You also optimize yourself as product, pursue self-improvement and productivity and achievement, not because they enhance your life, but because you believe they will make you finally worthy of happiness, will make you finally arrive at state where you deserve to be satisfied. This creates a situation where you cannot be happy now because current version of you is not good enough, is still working toward becoming the person who will be allowed to be happy once they achieve enough or improve enough or optimize enough. The commodification ensures that happiness will always elude you because it frames happiness as something external to be acquired, rather than as quality of engagement that comes from how you relate to your life, because it makes happiness depend on having or achieving or becoming something other than what you are, because it creates endless pursuit of next thing that will finally provide what the previous thing failed to deliver. You are not happy because you have been taught to shop for happiness, rather than to live in ways that naturally generate it as byproduct of meaningful engagement with reality. What actually creates sustainable happiness is not the things you are pursuing, but is quality of your attention and engagement with life, is ability to be present with your actual experience, rather than constantly seeking different experience, is capacity to find satisfaction in ordinary moments, rather than requiring extraordinary experiences to feel anything. Happiness is not destination you arrive at through achievement, but is way of moving through world, is quality of your relationship with reality rather than quality of the reality itself. Sustainable happiness comes from developing capacity to engage deeply with simple things, to find complexity and interest in ordinary experiences, to be fully present rather than always planning or remembering or comparing or evaluating. It comes from reading book without simultaneously scrolling phone, from eating meal without distraction, from having conversation without thinking about what you will say next, from walking without listening to podcast, from doing one thing at a time with full attention, rather than splitting attention across multiple sources of stimulation. It comes from lowering your stimulation threshold rather than constantly raising it, from spending time in boredom until you rediscover capacity to be interested in subtle things, from reducing exposure to supernormal stimuli until normal pleasures begin to register again, from allowing dopamine system to recalibrate so that ordinary experiences can provide satisfaction. This requires period of discomfort, requires tolerating boredom and restlessness and craving for intensity, requires resisting impulse to immediately reach for stimulation whenever you feel understimulated. It comes from appreciating what you have rather than constantly seeking what you do not have, from stopping comparison and evaluation and judgment, from allowing yourself to enjoy experiences on their own terms rather than measuring them against impossible standards. It comes from being satisfied with enough rather than always seeking more, from recognizing that hedonic treadmill means more will never provide lasting satisfaction, so you might as well step off the treadmill and find satisfaction in what is here now. It comes from using pleasure as enhancement rather than as escape, from choosing experiences because you genuinely want them rather than because you are avoiding discomfort, from developing capacity to tolerate normal negative emotions without immediately seeking pleasure to numb them. It comes from living in present rather than an imagined future, from engaging with actual life rather than constantly working toward different life you believe will begin once you finally achieve enough. Nothing makes you happy anymore because you have destroyed your capacity for happiness through overstimulation that has raised your pleasure threshold beyond what normal life can provide, through hedonic adaptation that ensures you can never sustain satisfaction through acquisition or achievement, through using pleasure as escape rather than as genuine enjoyment, through constant comparison that makes every experience insufficient, through living in future rather than in present, through treating happiness as commodity to be purchased rather than as quality of engagement with life. You are not broken and nothing is missing. You have simply trapped yourself in pleasure paradox, where the methods you use to pursue happiness guarantee that you will never find it, where the more you seek pleasure, the less you can experience it, where the constant stimulation destroys your ability to be stimulated, where the endless seeking ensures you never arrive. Contemporary culture has taught you to pursue happiness in ways that systematically destroy your capacity to experience it, has sold you solutions that are actually the problem, has convinced you that more stimulation and more achievement and more optimization will finally provide satisfaction, when actually these things ensure you will never be satisfied. The path to sustainable happiness is not through pursuing it directly, but through living in ways that naturally generate it as byproduct, not through seeking intense pleasures, but through developing capacity to experience subtle ones, not through constant novelty, but through deep engagement with what is here, not through achieving more, but through wanting less, not through escaping discomfort, but through tolerating it, not through living in future, but through inhabiting present. This requires giving up the pursuit, requires stopping the seeking, requires accepting that happiness is not goal to be achieved, but is way of being that emerges when you stop trying so hard to feel different than you feel, when you allow yourself to engage with your actual life rather than constantly seeking escape from it, or improvement of it, or optimization of it. Nothing makes you happy anymore because you have spent so long seeking happiness that you have forgotten how to simply be. And being is where happiness actually lives. In the present moment, you keep missing while searching for it somewhere else.